Here we go. I'm Fainer, and these are the 15 albums from this month that I am most excited to tell you about. Now, I'm not a music critic or any sort of authority figure. I'm just a guy who likes to share the music he's listening to with his viewers. As always, there's a Spotify playlist in the description with my favorite track from each album. And if you like what I'm doing here on the channel, the biggest thing you can do to help me out is hit the like button. So first up we have Adult Mom, and she is doing that like trouble adjusting to adult life style of angsty indie rock. So, you know, you need your fruits, you need your vegetables, and you need your monthly dose of indie rock comfort food. Then is Of Montreal. So they've been a staple in the dance punk and electronic pop scene for quite a while now, and they're well known for their flamboyant and extravagant frontman, Kevin Barnes. So you should expect a meandering, psychedelic, strange experience on this one. It never stays in any one place for particularly long, and you kind of feel like you've had a strange fever dream by the time it's over. 13th is the new Genghis Tron album. So they were previously a metal band, but with their newest release in 13 years, they've clearly decided they don't want to be that anymore. So this is a spacey, dreamy, post-rocky album with a lot of electronics. It's much closer to something like Mogwai might put out rather than their old metal and hardcore stuff. 12th in line we have the new Jake Isaac album, and this is some soulful singer-songwriter stuff from the UK. There are some great vocal performances on it, fantastic pacing, and also a couple like phone call type interludes. It feels like it tells an abstract story of a relationship on the rocks in its very short runtime of 26 minutes. Next up is some fresh, hot emo pop from Riley, and this album was pretty clearly recorded in a garage or something, but it just has that like youthful, unbridled energy of like one of those house parties where there's a band playing in the living room and everyone's screaming their heads off. So I get some like Motion City soundtrack inspiration from the vocals and also at times like modern baseball. So while it's definitely kind of like trad emo leaning, I also like can clearly see those influences. Bringing up our 10th spot is Kings of Leon. So they seem to have cast their stadium rock banner into the gutter and elected to make an album that's much more driven by its sonics and textures than by its catchy choruses. At times, I get more of a dream rock vibe from this than anything else, and it actually kind of reminds me of that Still Corners album, which came out in January, if you happen to have been around for that one. 9th is Dead Poets Society. So these guys do a bit of a fusion between hipstery indie pop and also some of the heavier aspects of djent and progressive metal. So I've seen these guys somewhat playfully labeled as djent pop, and I think that's actually a really good term for it. I really like these bands that are out there on the boundaries of genres because that's where innovation happens. And speaking of being a little out there, 8th we have Shushu, and this is some pretty experimental art pop stuff. Some of the tracks are quite catchy and lyrically driven, but some of them also just kind of feel like experimental noise at times. So if you're not into the weird stuff, I would honestly just skip this one. 7th, we have Mixed Matches with their latest glitchcore and hyperpop album. So I actually like to listen to this one at low volumes. The instrumentation on it is pretty gentle, but the vocals are EQ'd and just kind of effect-laden to the point of being bright and a bit sharp. So if you listen to it at low volume, the vocals still kind of cut through and stand out, but the instrumentation creates a gentle and somewhat hypnotic atmosphere. 6th, we have Lana Del Rey with definitely the biggest and possibly the most divisive album of the month. Don't go into this one looking for pop music because it's simply not there. This is a soft and indulgent album which relies on less is more arrangements and Lana's fantastic vocal performances. I also have a full review on this one. 5th is Adult Books. Post-punk, synth pop, indie pop, noise pop, dream pop, just, you know, all those goodies that the indie kids love. This is a nice little diverse blend of them. So if you like bright melodic hooks along with a singer who just kind of seems bored to death, this is for you. Coming up fourth is Kota the Friend and Statik Selektah, but honestly, Kota the Friend is what does it for me. He has this penchant for taking catchy, poppy kind of jazz rap and then infusing it with his life lessons. Overall, I love Kota's super wholesome brand of hip-hop that doesn't forget to be fun. And while I don't think this is even his best release, I do think there are a couple standout tracks that show where Kota wants to take his sound, and that he's capable of combining both the catchiness of his work on Everywhere with the earnestness of Lyrics to Go. So I am super excited to see how Kota develops as an artist in the coming years. Third, we have For Those I Love with their debut album, and this is a pretty heavy listen. The album was inspired by the loss of the artist's best friend a couple years ago, and it seems to me like both a mourning and a celebration of life in urban Ireland. Expect a lot of spoken word poetry on this one, but not exclusively. The middle of the album has a very electronic dance feel to it, and there's also things like real phone conversations strewn about. So this is an intense album, and that makes it a kind of exhausting listen, but I appreciate it more each time I come back to it. Alrighty, second is Gazelle Twin and Nyx with Deep England. So Gazelle Twin is a rather art-leaning act from the UK, whereas Nyx is a collaborative drone choir who has worked with the likes of Sun. And together they've made this album which uses a demented variant of English folk music to criticize British nationalism and deep England identity. The lyrics here are quite jeering and backhanded, and each song seems to expose and rub some underbelly of British history or culture that might want to be left untouched. So I also think you're gonna kind of have to bring your avant-garde galoshes to this one, because it does have that high art elitist feel to it at times, and it's pretty ambient leaning. It kind of feels to me like some of the stuff I used to see performed in basements back in my artsy college days. Alright, album of the month. I'm gonna go with Genesis Owusu and his debut album Smiling with No Teeth. Overall, this just strikes me as doing everything a good hip-hop album is supposed to do. It's catchy, but it's also socially conscious. And it's got some bravado and attitude, but also a lot of careful self-introspection. So overall, it just strikes me as being one of those top-notch hip-hop albums, which is both an expression of the artist and a societal critique. Alright, that's the stuff I really enjoyed this month, and I hope you'll enjoy some of it too. Let me know what your favorite albums were from this month, and importantly, what you like about them. And we'll have a little conversation about it in the comments. Lastly, if you like what I'm doing here on the channel, please hit the like button. And yeah, I hope you'll come around next month to see next month's albums. But until then, remember to enjoy yourselves and just listen to whatever makes you the happiest. So that's it. I'm done. Thanks for watching.